How did it come about? Like,
Yeah,
I can imagine.
Sean, Sean, I remember when I heard a preview that Psycho, they're making Psycho 2, and I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, God, this has got to, there's a lot of pressure here.
Yeah.
How did you possibly,
All of that was true and more. I mean, it was really put a gun in your mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like, if anything, I thought I was going to ruin my career.
Really?
But I was lucky. The director was also afraid it was going to ruin his. So there was a seriousness to the making of that picture, which I don't think I've ever experienced before. And that's a tip of the hat to Richard Franklin, who's no longer with us, because Richard was an Australian who'd gone to USC, and that was the moment in time when Lucas had been like 2 years before him, and Carpenter was in there, and the guy, name's out of my head,
was it De Palma? Was he in it too?
no, not De Palma, but Blue Lagoon. Randall Kleiser.
Oh yeah.
There was a talented group, and Richard ended up being a producer of Blue Lagoon for Randall because they'd been classmates at USC. Anyway, Richard had done Road Games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that's an impressive movie. I like that.
And somehow that because he was a Hitchcock fanatic, he had gotten the job, and he was reading original screenplays, which they actually did in those days, and fell in love with the script that I had written, and had me in, and we talked and we got along, and we both knew that we were critically going to get killed.
Yeah.
But also the movie, it was terrifying and all that, and we worked harder than I've ever worked than anything else. But that movie started out as one of the first cable movies.
Wow.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
So Universal wanted to do it as a cable film?
Yes, if you look at the credits, it says produced by Oak Communications, which was a cable company in San Diego.
Oh my God.
I did not know that.
So we were presented with a number of problems. That first, I had to write a script that was strong enough to get Tony.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have Tony. But Richard was willing to bet that if we got Tony, that we could get it changed from being a cable movie into a theatrical release.
Oh.
Yeah, makes sense.
Now Universal had no clue there was any want to see on Psycho, or for that matter, any clue that there was a want to see with Tony playing Norman Bates again. I mean, whatever you.
Are you serious?
In their amazing
It's
wisdom.
crazy.
I'm serious. It wasn't until it was like a dream. We reviewed every film that Hitchcock had ever made, including the silent films. We ran them all, even the ones that nobody remembers. We found them, and we would go down to Universal, and they would screen them for us, because this was also a beat before VHS. Cable is just coming in, and the war has just started between Beta and VHS. And I did everything I could to make sure that script worked off of the given circumstances of the original. And I should also say that Psycho was probably the definitive movie in my youth. Because because of Fright Night, I was a Hammer AIP fan.
Sure, as we all are here.
Yeah. Well, when I saw Psycho, I knew that movies had changed.
Yeah.
I really did. I knew he'd done montage, and I was like 10, 11, 12, something like that. And I knew that I'd seen something that I knew that horror. That was the beginning of modern horror for you fans out there.
It's like the horror and the evil is from within. It's not a monster from the outside.
That's right.
It's not a Frankenstein or a Wolfman.
Right.
But to take so many elements that are aside from the script to the elements of like a slasher movie, and put psychological horror and all that kind of stuff and make it work and elevate it is something that I had never seen before.
Yeah.
And to make Norman somewhat sympathetic, so you'd actually.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you
That's
go.
The real key to the approach,
Well,
which you could
right.
have approached it in any number of ways, and Robert Bloch himself had written a sequel a year or two before, which was almost a satire of the slasher film craze.
Well, I sat in the panel with Robert Bloch after the film came out.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
how was that?
Well, he was a very, very nice man, but he was still rather put off by it.
I bet.
But he was put off by the violence. Now, I also know that Robert Bloch was one of the mentors of a writer named Stephen King.
Hmm.
You know, and Robert Bloch also had to go out every 5 minutes and have a cigarette. and it killed him in the end, you know.
Wow.
It killed him. I had dinner with Stephen when I was making Langoliers, and we talked about that. Robert Bloch thought it was gratuitous, thought that Psycho 2 was gratuitously violent, but Robert Bloch probably made one of the worst commercial mistakes ever made when he wrote the sequel, the book,
Hmm.
because he killed Norman Bates off on page 28.
Ah.
I mean, it made it unusable.
Right, right.
I mean, so I was faced with having to write an original screenplay. And it wasn't because I wanted to, but you know, that was just the way it was. Anyway, what happened was dreams came true. I wrote Norman as you really would have liked to have seen him.
Yeah.
Sympathetic,
Yeah.
you know,
Still a
Yeah.
victim.
still a victim.
Yeah.
Delicately balanced, but still a victim.
Now, when you showed it to Tony Perkins, like, did he have suggestions? Did you do several drafts before he was going to have you?
Not one.
Really?
Really?
Wow.
That script was that good. Now, while they were shooting, he asked me to put in the grilled cheese sandwich scene.
Oh, I love that scene.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise known as the toasted cheese.
Yes.
Toasted cheese sandwiches.
Because Richard Franklin was Australian, and they had toasted cheese with
Oh.
their Campbell's tomato soup,
Yeah.
and not grilled cheese.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Tony said yes, yes, yes in a big way,
That's great.
but we were still a cable movie.
Wow.
Universal did not have a clue, and then Universal put out a press release saying that Tony Perkins was going to do Norman in a sequel to Psycho, and the world went crazy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, and Universal was literally forced into making a theatrical.
They're like, maybe there's something here to this.
We made that direct on the back lot, the same way that Hitchcock made the original for 4.8. Now that's without the studio overhead, but the studio overhead it came in at 5.2.
Wow.
Really?
That movie was the #1 movie of the summer of 1982, and my memory is that it grossed worldwide over $95 million.
And that's in keeping with the original Psycho. I think didn't Hitchcock make that whole movie with the budget and crew of his TV show?
That's what
Right.
he did.
It was like
Right.
a tiny little budget movie.
That's what
right.
and you've never read bad reviews until you read the original reviews of Psycho.
Yeah.
I mean, they castigated him. It was,
yeah.
and he was in despair, and for 5 minutes he thought about closing it down, and then of course he woke up and the lines were on the block.
Yeah. Yeah. Look who's laughing now.
And
Yeah.
then Tony Perkins, because I just watched that again recently, and how he almost just walks directly back into that role so
Yeah.
seamlessly.
Yeah.
He really is. You so sympathetic, and you're really like from that very first scene, you're just rooting for him.
Well,
all the
it's,
Yeah.
a, it's a tragic, sad
It
movie
is.
because like he's trying so hard.
He
It's like
is.
he's better now, and,
Yeah.
then, and circumstances, you find out like are against him.
Remember-
It's a great mystery, and it's a good. It's really well
Well,
done.
it's a great character arc for an actor
Yeah.
because it's the story of a man who's delicately balanced, trying desperately to hold on to his
Desperately.
sanity,
Yeah.
Right.
and slowly losing the grip. And everybody's being killed around him,
Yeah.
and he's not doing any of it.
That's what's great, but that's the other part of it too, which is that at the same time you're getting that, you're getting this amazing whodunit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back and forth, who could this possibly be?
Yeah, since we keep eliminating everything.
Yeah.
That's right. It couldn't be Meg Tilly because I had a huge crush on
Well,
her. So I
she
just-
is delightful.
She
Oh,
really
my.
is. Every
More
time
shower.
Yeah.
Well, that film is very interesting. It seems to me that people forgot about it for about 15, 20 years, and in the last 10 years or so,
Yeah.
that's been making it's made a huge comeback.
Rightly so.
Yeah.
Great
But-
movie.
Great movie.
But it's come back among film critics. That's what's been interesting. It's not like I get some horror blog calling me up to talk about it.
Right.
I get serious film critics.
Really?
Who are writing books and want to include a chapter about Psycho 2.
That's awesome.
So-
That's what infuriates me about some of the original reviews, which the idea of well, you know, it's almost like saying, well, it's not Psycho. Well, it can't be Psycho. You
No.
can't make Psycho again. You
No.
gotta
Right.
do
No, I
something
agree.
different.
Which
I
with
agree,
it.
Matt, I agree.
Which they did. They did
Yeah, and we
remake
know
Psycho,
what.
yeah.
What went wrong with
Oh,
that?
Let's say about that
no,
everything.
Sean, I don't even want to.
Yeah,
acknowledge that film
useless
exists.
avoidance.
Yes.
You're
But I
talking
mean-
about the one with Vince Vaughn.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Less than so.
And which is really just an excuse, like, hey, Psycho is a great movie. We'll make it in color for the young people because they don't know anything.
It was so stupid. What a waste.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the idea that wow, this is a new Psycho movie that brings something entirely different, and there are little sort of homages and
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
tributes
there's
to
nods to
some Hitchcock things.
There's some
but
great humor
it is
in it, too.
it is
Yeah.
without a doubt its own thing,
Right,
and
right.
just a really enjoyable movie.
Yeah.
I agree with you and thank you. Well, I never worked harder on a script because I was so damn scared. You knew you were going to get killed by the critics
Right, right.
for having the temerity, the hubris to even attempt it.
Were you kind of relieved that because it was well reviewed in certain.
Yeah, remember
Company.
Matt. I don't know if you remember in the Bay Area, the reviews was not. It was.
It wasn't
It
like it
wasn't.
was-
No, it was like, you know what? It's not Psycho, but it was okay. That was
Right.
that's what I remember. It had like there's like a little man who was kind of there's like a little
Right,
levels.
right.
There's like a little man jumping out of a seat applying, a little man quiet, you know, pleasantly
It was the
applauding.
visual review in our paper.
Or there's a guy who was falling asleep, and it was a little man applauding. And I remember seeing that, Matt, and I said, "Oh, I really want to see that. I really want to go." And
Right.
I went and saw it, and I actually loved it. And of
Did
course,
you
having
get a
been killed,
feeling,
it was-
Tom, that like when you got those reviews, like, well, they didn't hate it. Phew.
Yeah.
You know, like I dodged a bullet.
Maybe
Yeah.
that was the worst thing. You were thinking, "Oh, they're gonna hate it. They're gonna castrate me," but actually, they didn't actually.
I knew it was a good movie.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, yes, I've been very proud of that movie. I mean, it's beautifully constructed, if I say so myself.
It is. It is.
But it's actor's bait too.
Yeah.
I had to write a part that would bring Tony back to do it.
Right, right.
And so that's deliberately constructed with an arc for the actor, because he starts saying it, he goes crazy at the end.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Which I did not expect that scene. I don't know about you
I
guys.
didn't know.
How that film, where that film went.
You're talking about the last.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know about you, Sean. I did not expect that. I thought.
Well, I look when he reaches for the T, yeah.
No. Oh God! It just gives me chills just thinking about that little shovel. Ugh,
Yeah, no, it's
blew me away.
But
Right.
now also the idea that the fact that
that
you
really was a terrific idea.
you're gonna get a lot of this.
Yeah. Sorry.
You're gonna have to
sorry.
just
Well, you know, but
go with it.
I mean, you know, what we did the same thing that Hitchcock did with the original.
Mhm.
We didn't include the last 3 pages.
Mhm.
So nobody
great.
had the last 3 pages to the day we shot.
Interesting.
So
That's
nobody
great.
knew how it was going to end.
Interesting. Oh, that's
Including Tony.
Really?
Yeah.
And do you feel like you maybe have a little sort of step up when it comes to screenwriting? The fact that you came from an acting background, and so you are able to write those arcs in a way that maybe someone who isn't versed in that would.
It's a good question.
Yes, it's been helpful.
Yeah.
But I mean, I got to tell you, it never gets any easier.
Really.
Well, I mean, all you do is you learn more, and the more you learn, the more you try to avoid the mistakes and the cliches, and
Yeah.
Right.
and you know, and when you get to know so much, you have such a catalog of film you've seen.
You're more critical on yourself.
Well, you know every cliche.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you say, hey,
Oh, that's been done.
Yeah, you know.
Right.
I mean, so you know,
Yeah.
it's I gotta say, I've always felt the kudos go to the man staring at the blank page.
I was
slide.
just about to say that. I was like, there is nothing more frightening than looking at that blank page.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
there
and also,
isn't.
you know, looking at studio mentality, especially, let's say, Universal franchise mentality, 83, I think Jaws 3D came out that same summer,
Mhm.
and, you know, you're looking at a pretty formulaic way of looking at sequels and franchises, and the Jaws franchise went absolutely nowhere, whereas, thanks to Psycho 2, and your approach to it, it kept the Norman Bates character and franchise alive, even through today in the Bates
E-
Motel.
Even through today, which is taking
That's
on a
right.
new life, yes.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
handled in a pretty sensitive way, in a thoughtful way,
Hmm.
and that's thanks to your approach.
Well, that guy who runs the Bates Motel, who was on Lost, Lindenhoff maybe, I can't remember, but he came up to me at a Masters of Horror dinner and introduced himself, and when we were shooting, he was the producer's assistant. And of course, I had no memory, but I mean so he's been involved. He's been involved with Psycho since Psycho 2. And,
Wow.
and he's ended up being the showrunner, overseeing producer on the Bates Motel.
That's pretty
Wow.
cool.
Standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.